Great to see King Charles III back in action.
This useless Labour government are doing the impossible. They're actually making things worse. They really are. Look who we've got running the country at the moment. Free Gear Kia. Or Never Hear Kia. We've got Rachel from Accounts. We know her, don't we? Angela Rayner, the no-brainer.
Breaking developments raise a chilling question. Is Britain still a free nation, or has it quietly become something else entirely? In just 3 weeks, more than 700 people have been detained not for criminal acts, but for speaking out, with farmers, mothers, pensioners, and even veterans reportedly taken away for refusing to comply, as anger spreads across the country. Behind palace doors, King Charles is said to be deeply alarmed, with sources claiming he has issued a stark warning to Keir Starmer, one serious enough to rattle the foundations of government. As the public asks why Starmer's administration is turning against its own citizens and how close the country is to a national breaking point, attention turns to an increasingly aggressive crackdown that critics say crosses a line no modern British leader has dared approach. Under the banner of emergency national stability, new enforcement measures have been pushed through, leading to hundreds of arrests of ordinary people whose only offense was raising their voices. At the center of the fury is a rush tax overhaul targeting inherited farmland, forced through Parliament without public scrutiny, revaluing agricultural land at inflated levels and leaving families facing unbearable tax demands or the loss of land held for generations. What should have been a policy debate erupted into outrage, with protests flaring from Kent, where an elderly farmer was detained after locking himself to his barn, to Norfolk, where villages formed peaceful camps to resist what they called the destruction of rural life. Starmer did not engage or negotiate, and instead deployed heavily equipped police units with shields and crowd control tactics, a response that has intensified accusations of authoritarian overreach and left the nation stunned by what is unfolding behind the scenes. Videos quickly flooded social media showing tractors blocking roads, families breaking down as elders were taken away, and police pulling young volunteers into vans simply for standing in support, with one clip spreading across Europe that showed a disabled veteran being handcuffed in his wheelchair while holding a sign reading, "This is not the Britain I fought for." That footage reportedly reached Buckingham Palace and triggered a far more serious reaction, as sources close to the royal household now say King Charles was enraged after viewing multiple videos from Kent, Yorkshire, and Essex during a private briefing, reacting with visible anger and condemning what he saw as oppression in plain sight. One royal aide later said they had never witnessed such fury, describing the king's view that the situation represented not just political excess but a moral breakdown, and that same night he allegedly placed a direct and confrontational call to Prime Minister Starmer. While the exact wording remains undisclosed, reports claimed the king warned that national unity was being torn apart and that once public trust is lost it cannot be restored, a message understood as a serious warning rather than symbolic ritual. Yet Starmer showed no sign of retreat, and days later in Glasgow he dismissed questions about the arrests and the alleged royal intervention as theatrics before hardening his stance, declaring that disruption disguised as protest would not be tolerated and that anyone undermining unity would face the full force of the law, a response that only intensified public outrage as fear across Britain rapidly turns into fury and once quiet town halls become flashpoints of tension, citizens who challenge Labour MPs over rising taxes or energy costs are now being removed by security mid-sentence, with reports from Essex describing a mother arrested simply for interrupting a council official with a question about heating bills, accused of obstructing a government representative, while in Cornwall police warned teenagers that publicly questioning policy could be treated as stirring unrest. These incidents are no longer seen as isolated excesses but as signs of a deeper systemic shift, a Britain where speaking out carries tangible consequences. As the tensions increase, resistance is growing, with tens of thousands marching silently through London carrying candles and signs declaring they are not afraid, churches and mosques in Birmingham opening their doors for legal aid and community organisation, and neighbourhoods across Scotland holding discreet meetings to plan petitions and legal challenges against what critics now label the Star Laws. Amid this rising tension, Buckingham Palace is evolving from a symbol into a focal point of conflict, as advisors to the king are said to be divided between urging constitutional restraint and arguing that the moment demands moral resolve, with one insider bluntly asking what purpose a monarchy serves if it remains silent as democracy erodes. quiet speculation now surrounds the once unthinkable possibility of a direct public address from King Charles to confront the crisis, not as a political act but as a moral intervention, something not seen since 1936, a move that could define his reign and alter the nation's course. Yet time is slipping away as Starmer's hold on power tightens, his inner circle increasingly dominated by loyalists and hardline legal strategists. An elite internal memo suggests Labour's leadership believes the unrest is temporary and will fade once the public is conditioned to accept a new definition of national stability. Those words have unsettled everyone who has seen them. And if this truly marks the dawn of a new political order, Britain may be facing the deepest identity crisis of its modern era. The monarchy, the media, and the public are all under strain, as one chilling question hangs in the air: who still has the power to stop this? As unrest intensifies, the boundary between governance and oppression is rapidly dissolving, transforming democratic debate into a full-scale national reckoning. The Starr administration's refusal to confront the growing dissent has only poured fuel on the fire, with each day bringing reports more alarming than the last. In Lincolnshire, a village school was reportedly searched by police after a 16-year-old shared a video criticizing Labour's crackdown online, with the teenager held for 9 hours under expanded emergency stability rules, denied access to his parents, who were later fined for failing to prevent what authorities labeled subversive behavior. This is no longer simple excess, critics argue, but deliberate and relentless control, even as the government insists nothing out of the ordinary is occurring and maintains that all actions fall within existing law. Legal experts are sounding urgent warnings, with senior barristers, former judges, and rights advocates arguing that loosely defined offenses like non-compliance with public order or undermining national stability grant the state sweeping, unchecked authority, allowing individuals to be detained without clear charges, held without trial, and denied timely legal access. These dangers are no longer theoretical, they are unfolding in real time, as Britain reaches a crossroads where official silence grows deafening, fear on the streets is unmistakable, and resistance can no longer be ignored. For every arrest, more voices rise in defiance, and for every protest shut down, another quickly takes its place, yet Starmer holds his line, insisting order must be enforced even if it costs the freedoms that define the nation. But order without justice is hollow, and unity without the people is meaningless. King Charles, the symbolic core of Britain, now faces the most defining moment of his reign, torn between silence under rigid convention and speaking as a moral voice before it is too late. His words may carry limited legal force, but they still shape the conscience of a nation, and that conscience is under strain. This is no longer a dispute over taxes or demonstrations, it is a battle over identity, over whether Britain remains a country where free expression, the right to question authority, and the dignity of citizens are protected rather than punished. The decision no longer rests with Parliament alone, but with the country itself, as people ask whether the monarchy should remain silent while suffering grows and whether this is still the Britain they recognize. Across cities like Manchester, Liverpool, and Brighton, reports claim ordinary citizens are vanishing into temporary holding centres without clear records or public scrutiny, leaving families searching desperately for answers while officials respond with silence or evasion, deepening the sense that the nation is standing on the edge of something it may not easily return from. All of this is unfolding as King Charles finds himself trapped in a political nightmare of his own, with pressure mounting daily for him to move beyond private concern and offer moral leadership in public, as a disillusioned nation increasingly looks past Parliament toward the palace. A growing number of citizens now see Charles not as a ceremonial figure, but as the last symbol of national integrity, with petitions flooding Buckingham Palace demanding he take a stand and protesters gathering outside royal residences holding signs urging him to speak and defend democracy. Rarely has a British monarch been drawn so directly into a political crisis, and inside the palace the tension is intense, with insiders saying the king is torn between constitutional neutrality and deep personal alarm at what is happening across the country. Advisors are reportedly divided, some warning that public criticism of the government could trigger a constitutional confrontation, while others argue that democracy itself is under threat and silence would amount to complicity, with one advisor bluntly stating that if the king fails to act now, his moral authority may be lost forever. This moment is no longer about tradition versus politics, but about relevance versus irrelevance. At the same time, Starmer continues tightening his grip on power, with the Home Office expanding surveillance of suspected dissent spaces including libraries, community centers, churches, and even school councils, while government operatives quietly monitor online platforms, track organizers, and flag content that challenges official narratives. A whistleblower from within the Communications Ministry has revealed the existence of an internal blacklist containing more than 2,000 names of citizens labeled as destabilizing voices, many of whom have already been visited by authorities, questioned without warrants, and in some cases detained without clear explanation, deepening fears that Britain is crossing the line from governance into control. This unprecedented level of intrusion has triggered alarm far beyond Britain's shores, with international watchdogs releasing scathing reports accusing the UK of systematic civil liberty violations, as Amnesty International condemns the treatment of peaceful protesters and warns of arbitrary detentions, while the European Court of Human Rights launches an urgent inquiry demanding answers from the government. Adding to the humiliation, several EU allies have quietly frozen civil rights cooperation, citing reputational risk, as Britain, once a benchmark for democratic governance, is now being mentioned alongside states associated with political repression. Yet even as global concern mounts, Starr's tone has hardened, with a leaked private briefing reportedly revealing his belief that resistance will fade and that people inevitably submit to order after chaos, a stance widely viewed as arrogant and incendiary. Public anger has now evolved into structured resistance, with peaceful networks spreading nationwide to deliver food, medicine, and legal aid to affected families, while digital platforms document abuses, verify footage, and shield whistleblowers, and encrypted newsletters and underground broadcasts keep communities informed beyond official narratives. Still, fear lingers, as many citizens avoid political discussion altogether in cafes, schools, and even their own homes, not from apathy but from the sense that someone may be listening. Reports continue to surface of anonymous tips leading to official visits, a father in Sussex detained after a school comment by his daughter, a Cardiff teenager questioned over a candlelight vigil, and a Devon teacher suspended for sharing critical journalism, yet within this imposed silence defiance continues to spread, as quiet resistance grows stronger in every space fear attempts to claim. In Leeds, a protester raised a sign bearing nothing but a black square, while in Newcastle crowds stood in absolute silence for an hour outside a government building, unmoving, wordless, and defiant, small acts carrying a thunderous message that they see what is happening and refuse to be muted. From within a palace that now feels like a pressure chamber, King Charles watches it all unfold, every report, every video, every plea sharpening one unavoidable question of how long he can remain silent. He may lack executive authority, but in moments like this he holds something equally potent, the moral weight to summon a nation back from the brink, yet with every day of hesitation the divisions deepen and the task of repair grows heavier. As Britain drifts toward constitutional and social fracture, Starmer and Charles stand locked in a high-stakes confrontation, one asserting control through fear, the other wrestling with responsibility, leaving the country asking not only what comes next, but who will act first. The composed surface of British life is cracking as simmering unease erupts into open fractures between government and citizens, press and truth, monarch and minister, while the Starr administration tightens its grip with calculated force, blending coercion and bureaucracy to suppress dissent. Among the most disturbing developments is the emergence of temporary detention sites, converted warehouses, disused military facilities, and industrial hangars quietly transformed into makeshift holding centers, signaling how far the state is willing to go as control eclipses consent. The government labels them stabilization facilities, but human rights groups call them black sites, as leaked footage from inside one location reveals rows of metal cages, dim corridors, and frightened civilians held without charge, with no journalists, no lawyers, and no parliamentary oversight permitted. Some detainees are released visibly shaken and withdrawn, while others are never seen again, yet the government maintains it is all for the greater good, with Starmer insisting that democracy demands discipline during instability. But what kind of democracy detains mothers for speaking at town halls, or treats questions about taxes, energy costs, and basic rights as offenses? These are no longer abstract concerns, but questions echoing through living rooms, pubs, and corner shops nationwide. Even within Labour, unease is breaking through, as backbench MPs quietly leak warnings under anonymity, admitting the party is losing its soul and becoming something they no longer recognize, though fear keeps most from speaking openly. Once viewed as a champion of working people, labor is now seen by many as the engineer of repression, and so the question grows louder by the day: what will King Charles do? At every peaceful march, the same chant rises into the air, asking where the king is, no longer as a political challenge but as a desperate appeal for leadership, clarity, and the courage to say what so many already believe, that this is no longer the country they recognize, and change must come before it is too late.